Good evening, everybody. Welcome. Thursday night, Born Political. When I first started the show, I wanted to meet people that were in the community and really talk about who they were, because I thought it was important that we really get to know everyone in our community, especially folks that are representing us in Hartford or if they're on our councils, just to know, what makes them tick, where they're from. And I really enjoyed that. But I got a lot of positive feedback. But we're going to pivot a little bit on this show because I think what folks are asking, the same folks that represent us, it could even be our chief of police, or it could be somebody that's in our town government. They want to know what makes them tick, but they also want to know how they feel on some of the issues. And no bigger issue in our country right now that was settled law for 50 years. Tonight I have a guest that is not just a representative, but also an attorney. Someone that I've worked with for 6 years, 6 sessions up in Hartford, and know the veracity that she fights for women's health care and women's rights. She's done it for all 6 years since I've been there. I got some phone calls when I was shaky on some bills that she thought I should be solid on. But to have her explain it, and I think a lot of people have anxiety about what's happening in our country. And this is two sides of this issue, and we know it's a very strong and there's a lot of passion behind the issue of Roe v. Wade and abortion. But I think what we really need to do is find out what the facts are, what this new change means for Connecticut, what it possibly means in the future, and really understand it. And there was no other person I would call in here or ask to interview than Christine Conley, because she's passionate about the issue, but she also knows an awful lot about it. And being a lawyer, there's no better person to interview. So thank you for coming on the show. A lot of people are looking for some guidance, and I think you're the person to do it. So thanks for being back, though.
Thanks, Joe.
Second time on the show. This is back-to-back weeks where I had somebody come back for a second time. And we already got everything out of the way about where you're from and all that. This is something that I think there was an overall somber feeling. We knew, I think 4 months ago when the leak came out, that it was leaning this way. But I think in the back of our mind, a lot of people thought, well, probably not, because that's not going to happen. And here we are. And a lot of people are, I think, nervous about what can happen in Connecticut. And I see Facebook and a lot of chatter, and a lot of people are saying, well, don't worry about it because Connecticut has its laws. And I think you had some notes, and you explained to me why it does matter.
Yeah. So Roe being overturned by the Dobbs decision is sad, alarming, disappointing, and I think many of us and some of us in the legal community might have been paying attention a little closer than the average person, but I think the average person still knew things weren't going well for Roe. And when the opinion came out Friday, I wasn't surprised because I'd read through the leaked opinion. I knew the balance of the court. I knew I wasn't surprised with what 6 were on one side and what 3 were on the other. But it's just hard to read. It's hard to take in. It's hard to realize that certain people in this country do not care about the rights of other people in this country. Yeah. And that's really disappointing.
And I think and after 50 years of settled law, I think a lot of people got comfortable in the position that it can never change because, well, it was law for 50 years. And I think a lot of people are comfortable here in Connecticut because we have codified a lot of these laws, since not just I've been up there, but way back when it first became law. The legislators in Connecticut made it a point to make sure that the protections were going to be there. But that doesn't always have to be there. And we talked off air. I think I was also, not being a lawyer, and I should, as a legislator, I should have understood this, but if the feds change this now, and we have an election coming up, with a simple vote and making it against the law in all of America, where would Connecticut stand, even with the laws as we have them written?
Yeah, so today we're all set in Connecticut, today, just today. 2 things could happen. So our state laws are very strong about abortion, and any decision on a pregnancy is between the patient and their doctor. That's our law. That's been our law since the 90s. That's been our law since Casey, which is, everyone talks about Roe. Casey came out in 1992, which set up the undue burden standard and really what abortion laws have been written on since 1992. The technical parts of it as to what's safe and what's not safe, what's an undue burden for a patient and what's not an undue burden. So in the 1990s, our General Assembly, neither one of us were there, but other people were sitting in those seats before us, said that a decision on pregnancy is between the patient and their doctor.
Yeah.
We expanded that law this year that allows not just medical doctors, but allows APRNs and PAs to do procedures and to issue the abortion pill, because in the 1990s, first of all, we didn't have a lot of PAs, and secondly, we didn't have the abortion pill. Yep. So it was the medical abortion procedures what was being talked about, the abortion procedures what was being talked about in the 90s. And technology's just advanced since then, because we're in 2022. We also did a very good thing, which we made our state a sanctuary state for abortion procedures. And our Attorney General has stated to me and publicly that he will fight any subpoena from another state where abortion is outlawed to come to try to get medical records in our state from a patient, try to get doctor's information from our state if a doctor performs something. We're not participating in the other state's rules. We will allow patients to get safe abortions here. And that's our law today, and that will be our law as long as people in our state General Assembly and our governor uphold that law.
Yep.
But all we need is one election in our state, and anyone can change a law. Yep. So if we lose the majority in the House, Senate, or the governorship, we as residents of the state could have an issue with that law. There's also a big issue that's worrisome for me and many others, is what happens nationally. So Dobbs said we, as a female, I'll say we do not have the right to abortion under our Constitution. It's not included in the right to privacy, and that's what the Supreme Court has the authority to say, as much as I disagree with them. So if there happens to be a federal law that says abortion is not legal in our country, then our state laws in Connecticut conflict with our federal law. And the persons who decide that conflict will eventually be the U.S. Supreme Court.
Exactly, and we know how they ruled on that.
We will get a 6-3 ruling.
Yep.
If the membership of the Supreme Court stays the same and their opinions stay the same, and it could change our laws.
And I think the rhetoric is, well, this certain side of this issue constantly keeps saying that it could change. Constantly keeps saying that but no, we're not going to touch it. It's never going to happen. Never going to happen seems to be happening a lot lately. When we say things that can never happen, so. With this national election, and again, if you're out there on Facebook and you're reading some of the posts that I read that comment, I'm not sure why you guys are so concerned. This is why. Laws it's our document, our Constitution, our laws, they're living and breathing. It's not something that I quite understood as much as I do now. And people say, you should just leave that issue alone. You guys wouldn't have to worry. Why do you bring up things that don't need to be readdressed? And it's not true. It's a living, breathing document that could always be changed. And if you think it's being changed for the worse, of course you're going to be passionate about it. Of course you're going to want to try to change something. This to me is an issue too that's divided because it's so primal. People that think they're coming out to defend the rights of the unborn. I get it. That's what you're feeling. It's hard to bring two sides together on an issue that is so, just like I said, primal. It's tough. But think of how tough it is already for the person that's going through it, that's trying to make that decision. That these are not happy moments for anybody. It's and I hope people don't look upon abortion that way. I know if you're on the other side of it, you say, oh, they don't care. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it, a lot of decisions, a lot of gut wrenching, personal decisions that, personally, I think should be a personal decision. I am a pro-choice person that, my whole life, because I think it is something that we can't get in the middle of and shouldn't. But now, how do we defend it? Say the federal government does pass this law and the Supreme Court upholds that states have no right to enforce it or to allow it locally. Is it done?
Yeah, it's done.
It's done. Doctors getting arrested in Connecticut.
It could, if that's federal law, then if the state law is in conflict, and the courts could say our state law is no longer valid. And after we go to the Supreme Court, there's no place else to go.
That's it.
So it would go through the federal court systems, all 3 federal court systems, and the decision maker is the Supreme Court. What they would do, I know what they would do. They would say, you don't have the right to that. Would I like a couple of those judges to jump and say that they believe in states' rights and our state had the right to make our law and uphold our state law? I'd love that to happen. But would I bet my life and other women's lives on it? No, I wouldn't. This is, I think some people, and I saw on social media some of the things that really upset me, and was a good opportunity to clean out my friends list as to who says what. But some people act as if like women are excited to get abortions, as, oh, great.
Yeah.
That it's a nonchalant, like an easy decision, excitement, and like let's go get an abortion today.
Yeah, there's no parties, right?
There's no, never had that.
I don't think people go out after and celebrate. I think it's and again, even if they did, and that was something that, and it would as harmful as you think it could be and terrible, it's really not your body and not your choice. It's that person's choice, and a lot of things happen that we don't like in our country that other people do. But this one, I think, is just
really personal. And as a female who's never been able to get pregnant, I'm so angry about it because it's taken other females' rights away, and other pregnant people's rights away. I've been with friends where they were deciding what to do, and be it a situation where you didn't have the money, where you knew you didn't have health insurance before we had affordable health care, where you didn't have a job and you were thinking, what am I going to do? In support, if you are in a church situation where you get support, or in a friend situation where you get support, that's all wonderful. But I've also been with women who have gotten, diagnoses on the fetus, who have been told this fetus is not viable, and they had to decide, do I carry an unviable fetus to term, or am I starting to have complications as the pregnant person where it's not safe for me to do this? I've known women who, almost died with the birth of one child, and contraception failed and they became pregnant and thought, oh my gosh, if I have this pregnancy and die, who's going to raise my other children? And that's not a decision that really the government should be involved in. And then you have others, a million situations and a million decisions and a million choices where pregnant people have conversations with their family and with their doctors and do what's best for them. And I firmly believe that when you have that conversation and you make the choices to what's best for you, the rest of us should stay out of it and just support you.
And through legislation, just me knowing the whole process now, and after being there for 6 years and we get information about every subject. It doesn't really matter. Somebody wants you to pay attention to a bill that's coming out, and there've been abortion bills that in the 6 years have been to strengthen them in different ways, so you learn things. And the one thing that's interesting is if you want to prevent abortions or you want to stop them, let's face it, there's 350 million souls that live in our country. You're never going to stop it 100%. So why wouldn't you just educate and make sure that you give people the best information and the best opportunity and the safest procedure they could have? Because when you look at states that have strong access to health care, good education programs, a higher education, more kids going to school after high school, not surprisingly, abortion rates are much lower.
So you voted on strengthening abortion laws without actually talking about abortion on our 10 health essential benefits. When that bill, what we did in that law is we made long-term contraception copay free, and we made the birth control pill 12 months copay free and made it accessible to everyone. We also made Medicaid, our state health insurance, have to cover contraception, both the birth control pill and the long-term contraception. And this year in the budget, we provided several $100,000 towards the purchase of long-term contraception, knowing that we would have Roe and that people would want to get more long-term contraception. Being afraid of what's going to happen and saying, well, let me look at the methods 3 or 5 years. If I get a long-term contraception device put inside me, I'm at least protected against pregnancy for that period of time.
And even above and beyond pregnancy, I mean, we're, again, 350 million people, and to be able to have access to condoms, which actually prevents a lot of different diseases.
True.
And transferring diseases, and what the AIDS epidemic would look like if people didn't have access to those. I mean, I'm not even sure now. And again, you're the lawyer, and I was thinking about the Supreme Court decision, and Clarence Thomas actually wrote that this should expand into other things like contraception. That is
He wants to
horrifying.
make contraception illegal in our country. Contraception. And that's a Connecticut case.
You know, and
Griswold versus Connecticut made it legal for contraception to be prescribed to people, including condoms, including the pill, including diaphragms. This is Connecticut versus Griswold. Groundbreaking case. And Thomas said we want to overturn that and stop every American from getting contraception. He also said we want to stop the laws that say you can't arrest people for sodomy and for any non-traditional sex, whatever. We all know what that means.
Even gay marriage, too.
And he said he wants to get rid of gay marriage, all in one sentence in that opinion. One sentence.
One sentence did it all, huh?
It was quite a sentence.
Yeah.
But that's his belief. So when people tell you how they feel, you should believe them.
Yeah. And I don't, you know, and this is one of the top issues in our country right now. Well, there's a lot of things going on in our country, and I'm not here to scare people. I mean, although I think a lot of people will be frightened listening to what Representative Conley says, not just as a state rep, but as an attorney. I think, you know, you're able to describe exactly what could happen in a layman's terms, because there's a lot of disbelief. There's a lot of even interracial marriages he conveniently left out, I think, right, in his opinion.
As a person of interracial marriage, he left out Loving versus Virginia, which allowed interracial couples to get married across our country.
And those are that's what I think people don't understand. They say, politicians, you guys don't do nothing up there, blah, blah, blah. And a lot of people get down on us, but the reality is, you know, politicians affect every single thing that you do. Unfortunately, this branch of our government is supposedly not political, but we will be living and forced to navigate decisions. The way this court's made up and the amount of years that they have, this could go for 30 more years of, if they get control of you know, one moment in time where they can put a law that's going to basically get rid of access to contraception, to abortion in the state of Connecticut. And what does that mean?
To tell you what type of sex you can have with consenting adults in your home. That's what they're going to. What type of sex you can have with consenting adults in your private home across our entire country. And this will be the law for decades because these judges are young. They've got 30 years at least on the bench.
Yeah. And judges don't usually turn on their own opinions.
Very few.
Very few do. They are not subject to knocking on doors and saying, hey, I'm running for judge again. You know, and it's the way our country is set up, and it was supposed to, you know, the makeup of the court and the way they designed it was that they couldn't be influenced by politicians. But I don't think they ever expected or ever knew the kind of money and power that'd be connected to the court. And I'm not downplaying our system. I think it still is a great system. You know, you can have bad decisions. Things can happen. You just have to show that the people still control the country. And the scary part is, with a court that could be the same for 30 years, the people's voice really doesn't have to matter, so to speak. I think
the court, in my mind, the Supreme Court is the strongest branch of government that we have. They're the most powerful branch we have by far. And you might think, oh, every 4 years when I vote for the president, that's the most important. Or every 2 years when I vote for the House and Senate, that's the most important. No, those 9 souls who sit up there have the most power over your businesses, your personal life, and our laws in our country. And what we can do as legislators is we can continue to make good laws, but we can't uphold them. At a certain point, we've made our laws. Our words have become law in our state, and then we have to trust the judiciary to do what we feel is the right thing. And if they're on our side, it's okay. But if they're not on our side, we can make another law and try to stall things out for a little bit. But the court's the court, and the court gets to decide.
And I saw where they're offering, and I, you know, we could talk about even budget. I'm not going to be involved in the budget of Connecticut next year. I'm not running. But Chris, hopefully you will be back there. I'm very, very confident you will be. But you're going to be faced with a budget line now that probably, you know, the tourism, they're calling it, the abortion tourism, that 24 out of the 50 states are going to be seeing the influx with our neighbors, with folks flying from around the country to come here and have an abortion, or to even simply get medical care. I think what surprised me most when Planned Parenthood was in my office and asking me to support certain bills, was this is way more than about abortion.
It is.
This is women's access to health care. I mean, Planned Parenthood is the primary doctor for many, many women of lower income and black and brown, and like where they go to see their regular doctor. And when you defund a group like Planned Parenthood, this isn't ending abortion. This is ending women's health care as we know it.
Yeah, the Planned Parenthood that was closest to where I lived when I was in high school and college. And again, that was back before affordable health care. That was when you got removed from your parents' health insurance at age 18. That Planned Parenthood did not perform abortions at that location.
No.
What they did perform was pap smears. And they gave STI testings to men and women. You could go there for your regular OBGYN care if you were having trouble with your cycle and you wanted to talk about what are your options, be it medically with a birth control pill or be it non-medically, like is this normal? That's where you could go, and it's income based. So you were never, if you didn't have money, you could still get access to health care. Yeah. So many men and women use that as their primary care for your sexual needs and your if a man had an issue where he was doing a check on his testicles and felt a lump, that's where you could go.
Yeah.
And you could get care, and you could get an ultrasound, and you could get a referral, and they'd help you find someone that you could pay for.
Yeah.
So many people, even though if your parents have health insurance and you're a young adult, you can still get coverage, but not everyone has health insurance. People are still in that situation needing medical care, and that's what Planned Parenthood does for so many people who have never needed an abortion. And that's going to be, not allowed. Planned Parenthood is defunded in a lot of states, and those services aren't being used, even for folks who don't need abortions. So I've been looking, some states have one abortion provider in the entire state. So what we really have is people who have means, just like they did in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, will find a way to get an abortion.
Or Mexico's already offered and opened up their border.
Mexico, Canada, it's legal there. People who have means can fly and go there.
And that's always been the case.
Always.
And the people that suffer, whether you live in as a legislature, we've tried to solve food deserts, right? Like where there happens not to be a supermarket in lower income areas, and the folks that need cheaper prices the most are shopping at 7-Elevens because they don't have. Yeah. And the same type of thing is going to happen. These communities that are, already 26 states are going to make it illegal in their state. Yeah. And listen, I don't know how to tell people that are just depressed and sad and what to do. That's why I brought Christine Conley on, because I think a lot of people are finding solace in going to rallies and being together. But it seems like such a daunting task, knowing that the court is the court for 30 years, knowing that this election coming up is they're saying is going to be a rough election for one side, and God, what's that look like, and what would you do? I mean, I know you want to go to a rally, and I know you were so excited when I said, hey, I'm going to change the show a little. I want to talk about this issue. And Christine Conley's like, yes, I'm there. But what do you do?
I think what we can all do is we need to stand together. So for some of us, it means you need to be sad and get that out. Yeah. But then we need to act. So if you want to go to a rally, go to a rally. What's most important is you register to vote at your current address. Yeah. And you vote. You vote in August, because we have a primary August 9th. And that's for this in our state. It's for the Secretary of State. It's for the Treasurer. You might think, what does that have to do with abortion? That's a statement. It's a statement of, are these candidates pro-choice? Because these candidates could move to other positions. Yeah. That you want to make sure you have pro-choice candidates in office in all positions. Yep. So you're voting in August every time. You're voting, and then you're voting in November, and you're making sure all your friends and relatives are voting in November. So my question to everyone is, are you registered at your current address? Do you know where to vote? Yep. And let's get out, let's vote. Let's make sure that we do not have a change in our state, and we keep our strong majorities in the House, Senate, and governor race, so we uphold our laws. And then we've got to deal with the federal government. We need to make sure we keep all of our congressmen and senators in our state, and then make sure all of our friends and relatives who live in other states do the same thing.
Yep. And I think we both served with our current Attorney General. He was represented from Stanford when we were both serving together. And, you still had to make a phone call. I mean, I think what most people don't understand is they say, oh, well, you guys got so many Democrats in Connecticut, and they're not going to worry about it. You're not going to overturn anything. Well, not everyone votes the same way. We are a big tent party So sometimes it's just a few votes away from actually things happening, or not being able to protect at least the way we did now.
Yeah.
We had Democrats that voted the opposite way on the last bill.
We did.
And so it's not we're not a fall in line type of party. I think there's folks that for whatever reason they do they and again I fell out of line and voted against my party. I've seen Christine do it before. Because we don't all come from the exact same place and get our information in the same way or receive it the same way. So I think it's important to know that you need to ask a question, and it's very important that our Attorney General is supportive.
Yeah, and our Attorney General is on the correct side of this. He's on supporting pregnant people making their own personal decisions. He will uphold our state laws. He feels strongly about choice, and he's the right person for the job. So he's up on the ballot in November too, and I hope folks support William Tong. He's been doing a good job.
It's a big ballot. It's a governor's race. It's obviously all the state reps. That's every 2 years. Because you're always campaigning.
Always campaigning, Joe.
But really, the governor is going to have a huge impact on how we deal with laws that come down from the feds. And in my opinion, obviously, I supported Ned the first time, and there's absolutely. If this is your issue, I guess both ways, I guess you could look at it, but if this is your issue and you want to see the rights still being protected, I think Ned is hands down, in my opinion.
Ned will be correct on this. He will not veto any of our bills in the General Assembly.
And
so
I think it's important to know because a lot of times you have somebody that's iffy on a certain subject, it changes what the legislature does. Because the negotiations that happen between governor and legislator are rarely ever seen or talked about, but they happen every single session. Because again, if you're the person that's actually going to sign the end of the bill, and you're the only one signature needed after all of us got together and did our job, it's important to know that there's a strong voice, somebody that's saying, "You get me the bill. Yeah, I really don't care. Make other people comfortable, but put it on my desk and I'll sign it."
Yeah,
and it makes our job a little easier.
And of course, we have to talk about our Lieutenant Governor Susan Bysowitz.
Oh my God,
who is forever pro-choice and a strong person on this issue. This year, when we were unsure how the Senate was going to go on our abortion bill, I was up there with others where we were talking to the senators, making sure we had the count, because it was a House bill that started. So we were talking to the senators to make sure we had the count. And I went up to Susan and said, "Susan, we're working on the count, but if it's a tie, will you break the tie?" And she said, "Of course I will break the tie."
And then I wouldn't expect anything less from her. We have 1 minute left. We'll never be short of words when you get two politicians, but also good friends. I just want to let people know, if you're out there and you're on the other side of this issue, I'm obviously pro-choice. I talk to people that say, "Joe, it's wrong." I would ask that you read and see what could happen, what potentially happens. If we all agree that there's no way it's going to stop, there's no way you're going to get people get desperate. It's a poor health choice to try to do this at home by yourself. We've already proven that people will make that choice. People got hurt. People died. Let's keep this access going. And if you are on the other side, read about it. Look at other states. See the abortion rates compared from Connecticut to Texas, per se. All right, guys, I'm out of time. Thank you. We'll see you next week. This is Born Political. Can't wait to see you. Thanks, Chris. Thanks for being on.
Thanks, Joe.
Good show.
Good show.